Good news can often get overlooked or buried by the negative in our everyday lives. So let's change that. I'm Adrianna.
And I'm Wyatt.
We're just two ordinary people without any special qualifications or anything, trying to navigate life. We invite you to join us as we share wholesome stories, news articles of hope, and ideas about how we can all make the world just a little bit brighter. We are uplifting positive stories. Welcome back to another episode of Uplifting Positive Stories. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, excited to be here. We just came off of what felt like a really eventful, busy week, both for work, personal life. It was just a packed week. And now we had a chance to recharge a little bit over the weekend while still being productive. So it's nice to come back here recharged for another episode recording.
Yeah, we've got a great topic today. I'm excited. Today's topic is about pursuing dreams and having the confidence to follow your dreams. We're going to talk about many different aspects of our dreams and different ways of looking at our dreams and how we pursue them and how to do it in a healthy way.
And just to clarify, we're not talking about sleeping dreams because that could get into a whole other weird discussion of the weird happenings that go on in our head while we're sleeping. Or we could have an in-depth discussion about the movie Inception, which I'd be happy to do as well. But I don't think that's what we're here for, to clarify.
No, it's all about those goals that we have. And I think it's fair to say that everyone has a goal of some kind, whether it's big or small, and how we approach them can really impact us on the day-to-day. So I think it's important to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Our first story for today comes from the subreddit Wholesome Stories, and it is titled, How My 6th Grade Art Teacher Encouraged Me to Stop Tracing and Just Draw. And this story kind of tackles the self-confidence part of pursuing goals or pursuing hobbies and having the confidence in yourself that you can really actually do it.
I feel like stories involving teachers make many appearances on this podcast. So shout out to the teachers that continue to overperform and do more than they are given.
It's so true. I've been piling up content for future episodes, and just today going through stories, I found way more that have really wholesome stories involving teachers. So it's true. They really go above and beyond a lot of the time. So that's awesome. The story says, ever since I was a kid, I always loved art and was always at my happiest when doing anything that involves being creative. During middle school, I was bullied a lot, and art helped me through that, making me happy when I got praise for a drawing. Outside of projects for classes, most of my art at the time was traced from images printed from the internet. I traced because people liked the art I drew, and it made me feel happy too. To be honest, they were probably being nice, but it still felt amazing to hear at the time. During the 6th grade, I had an art class with a really kind and passionate teacher. Before class started one day, she noticed me tracing during class. I would have thought she would have yelled at me, ripped the page away, and possibly punished me, but that didn't happen. Instead, she leaned down and complimented me, saying that my work was good and that I was a good artist. I thanked her, and she then asked me why I traced. When I explained my reasons, she calmly asked, "Well, wouldn't you think people would love art you drew on your own more than if you traced it?" She then pulled the printout from under the page I was tracing on and put it next to the paper, asking me to draw it freehand this time. When I told her I wasn't sure I could and that I was nervous, she told me that it'll take time to step out of a comfort zone and I will be nervous the entire time, but it'll be worth it in the end. So I did what she asked, and until the class started, she kept giving me kind looks and kept pushing me to try harder. I ended up showing one of the drawings to my parents and haven't looked back since. I'm 23 now and have come a long way since then. I haven't traced other people's art since that day, and my projects really feel like my own. I want to be an animator someday, and I'm working towards that goal very steadily while also expanding my skills as an artist. I thought about what that teacher told me that day and how it really stuck with me. I see so many people and artists get angry at tracers when I just feel sympathy for them because maybe they're just like me and need a push in the right direction. In my opinion, if they're at least trying to make something their own, then they have some potential to do something good one day. I don't know where the art teacher is now. I hope wherever she is, she has helped a lot more kids just like she did with me.
Well, it sounds like a good teacher to me because, it wasn't that just that they were encouraging of them. They also pushed them to go outside their comfort zone and to take that skill to the next level because it'd be easy for a teacher, somebody to be like, oh, good job. Like, well, she still did that. She encouraged them to challenge themselves and step beyond that comfort zone and to get better and to develop that skill further beyond just, yeah, I'm good at this or I can do this and I get praised for it. Like to go out there and possibly fail and maybe get better. And it's going to be a process.
100%. I feel like it's a good example of to really be able to get better at something, you do kind of have to push yourself outside of that box, and you kind of have to be okay with being uncomfortable in the process. And it's a scary place to be because we like to feel comfortable. We like to feel like we know what we're doing and we're good at something. But when you're really trying to pursue a goal or a dream of some type, like this person wants to become an animator, you kind of have to push yourself into those unknown zones of not feeling like you're good at something and not feeling very confident in it, because by pushing yourself outside of the box, that's what makes you really good at it, because that's what helps you to stand out from the average. It's a matter of pushing yourself past what you think you're capable of. And I think that this teacher, by encouraging them and saying, this looks really nice, but then also saying, hey, you should make it more your own by making it freehand instead of tracing. I think that was a really nice way to approach that, by not shaming OP, but by showing them a different path. When I was in high school, I had an art teacher that was kind of like this too, that was very encouraging and would compliment people's artwork, but then would really try to push us to try to create our own ideas, not just like freehand drawing a picture of something else that we see on a page, but actually trying to create unique ideas that we can show through our artwork. And I remember being very uncomfortable doing that and feeling very outside of my element, because I was used to just looking at a picture and drawing it, and not trying to take multiple different images and combine them in my mind into some new composition to have something to say. And that's a really scary place, putting your heart and soul into an art piece like that and trying to say something with it. But that was something that our art teacher really pushed us all to do. And I think that's a really awesome thing to do as a teacher.
And everybody starts somewhere. So to also acknowledge that, hey, other people who are doing trace drawing out there, maybe they're at the beginning as well.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. I don't know. I know I could trace draw when I was younger back in school, but I can't draw for crap, but I could trace draw.
Well, trace drawing is great to get your motor skills really good, to be able to get those fine lines and those fine details. But also it's great in terms of teaching you kind of the line work in different images and stuff, being able to see, oh, okay, when I'm drawing this kind of thing, this is how I draw it when I trace it. So now when I draw it freehand, I have an idea of how it looks or how I feel when I draw that. So I can totally see how that would be helpful in the process, but it's kind of like taking the training wheels off of a bike when you stop tracing and go to freehand, because now you don't have that extra comfort of drawing the lines on the tracing paper. Now you're going kind of off the road a little bit. You're going to new territory.
And I feel like for that kind of thing, it helps a lot to have somebody else that's pushing you. It's really hard to push yourself outside the comfort zone without some kind of outside source encouraging you to do so, especially like she's doing the traces, at least at this point of the story, because people are complimenting her work with that. So if she's just going off of herself and like how she's feeling when she's given those compliments, it becomes even harder to then push yourself beyond that comfort zone, because you're getting the compliments, like you're getting the immediate reward. And I hope in time, as she continued to develop her drawing skills, that she learned to find the enjoyment beyond the recognition, the positive affirmation of others. Because you're not always going to get that in life. That's just eventually that fizzles out and like, okay, whatever. Like,
finding that intrinsic motivation, that motivation inside yourself, that you feel happy doing it and that you feel proud of the work that you do, not needing other people to show it. Because not everyone's great at showing it if they are impressed by something you do and stuff. So kind of moving away from that. And it sounds like OP has, now that they're much older now and are trying to become an animator and stuff. So that's awesome that they got to that point. But having those people to push you in the early days is really helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
Our next story comes from Best of Positive Updates. I will give some trigger warnings for this. It talks about cancer. It also talks about miscarriages, so I want to give that forewarning. I will put a time code in the description if you would like to skip this story, but it is a very positive story and has a very happy ending, so I will give that forewarning as well. This story is titled Conceiving After Cancer. The story was originally actually posted on a website called Alpha Mom on a page called Advice Smackdown from a blog, and then was posted here on Best of Positive Updates. So here we are. The story says, "Hi Amy, since I love your blog and think that you give such wonderful advice that really looks at things from all angles, I thought I'd write and ask you for your input. If you decide to print this, feel free to edit and take out as much as you see fit. Also, I'm really sorry if this is TMI or grosses you out. I just don't know who else to ask, as everyone that I would be comfortable asking is fertile Myrtle. I am 30 years old and a childhood cancer survivor, off therapy for 24 years next week. I had Wilms tumor, which is a kidney cancer, so I am missing my left kidney. 6 months after I completed treatment, I relapsed my lower bowel. That time they were able to remove just the tumor. I am in really good health otherwise and consider myself so lucky that this is really the first late effect I've ever had to deal with. I am a normal weight for my height and never had to deal with learning disabilities that a lot of childhood cancer survivors, especially survivors that have a reoccurrence. Almost 2 years ago, a pediatric endocrinologist that heads up a long-term survivorship program scared the bejesus out of me at our initial and only, it was a transitional appointment, and I have since transferred over to an adult long-term survivorship program appointment and told me that I needed to start trying to get pregnant yesterday. My husband and I immediately started trying, and here we are 20 months later, and we're not pregnant. A year ago, we met with a reproductive endocrinologist, and everything was within the normal range. My FSH, LH, my ovaries were both developed the way that they were supposed to be, which really surprised everyone. My uterus looked good, my cycles were very regular, and his sperm count was normal and had normal motility. Since everything was normal, my husband and I decided to give it another year on our own. We've tried everything we can without going back to the doctor, OPKs, not trying, etc. So in this past year, I have taken it upon myself to see a cardiologist, oncologist, and nephrologist and get their okays for getting pregnant and carrying a baby to term. All of them are totally on board. Since I have everyone's okay, my husband has recently caught the baby fever. It has it in all caps and kind of funnily spelled. We've made another appointment with the reproductive endocrinologists. I'm kind of terrified at the idea of using Clomid, but not opposed to it either. Am I getting way ahead of myself? What questions should we ask that we might not be thinking about? What are some things that you wish you had known when you went to see a fertility specialist? I would really appreciate any insight you might be able to give. H.
That was a lot. So my takeaway is they want to have a kid, but there's a lot of medical barriers and hoops to jump through to be able to possibly conceive, and she's trying to find out what the right questions to ask are.
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
That's my non-science brain analysis of that.
Yes.
And baby fever, can relate.
Yes. I can't even imagine being in her shoes, having had childhood cancer. That's so scary, and not knowing what that impact will be later in life, and now struggling with that and wondering if it is actually causing problems. That's really, really scary.
So what's the follow-up?
So the follow-up, as I said, has a happy ending. She ended up updating, and she wrote, "Hi, Amy. Gosh, I've wanted to be able to write to you with this update for so long, but I haven't been able to until now. I wrote to you back in the fall of 2010, this new update is in December of 2012, asking for your advice about being a childhood cancer survivor and seeing a reproductive endocrinologist for help in getting pregnant. We ended up doing 4 rounds of Clomid and IUI with acupuncture, getting pregnant twice, and both ended up being chemical pregnancies, not progressing beyond 5 weeks. After the 4th round, I had to be taken off of the Clomid, and we were told that IVF was our only option at that point. And the term atypical PCOS was tossed around. We never could get the RE to give us a good solid diagnosis. We wanted answers as to how IVF was going to keep me pregnant since I was getting pregnant with the IUIs and we weren't given any clear answers. So we decided to go the holistic route. Through a friend who'd also had trouble getting pregnant, we found a holistic doctor who guaranteed, can you see where this is going? He'd have me pregnant within 6 months. I thought it was a little arrogant, but figured I didn't have anything to lose at that point. I cut all processed sugar and gluten from my diet and took all kinds of supplements, but a year later, I still wasn't pregnant. Around this time, my husband was given the huge opportunity to open a new division of the company that he works for in Miami, Florida. We put trying on hold until we moved and were able to get settled in a new city. We went from a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs of Atlanta to a 2-bedroom teeny tiny condo in downtown Miami.
Oof.
It took us about a month to figure out that we were house people, not condo people, and we decided to put off trying again at least until after the first of the year, so that if I got pregnant right away, like that would ever happen, at least our lease in the condo would be up and we'd be in a house by the time our baby came. And then we found out that we were pregnant. I will hit the 12-week mark tomorrow. I had the nuchal translucency scan this morning with a maternal fetal specialist, and she just gushed and gushed over what a perfect baby I had growing and bouncing around in there. We are so excited that we can't see straight. So, anywho, thank you so much for your words of encouragement 2 years ago. You'll never know how much it meant and how often I went back to what you said about kicking cancer's butt and infertility having nothing on me. Thanks again."
Dang. Glad to hear there was a happy outcome after all of that, you know?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I feel like we often hear a lot of sad stories of people trying when there's issues and not having results and stuff. So it's always optimistic to see a situation where there is hardship in getting pregnant and stuff and seeing it actually pan out and that they actually were able to have what sounds like they're having a healthy pregnancy now. And sometimes it's not in the time frame we expect or the time frame that would be the most ideal. Obviously, they're like, we're going to wait now because we're in a tiny condo and we want to be in a house. And that's when they just happen to get pregnant. So sometimes it's not within the timetable we expect.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when I was working in television news years ago, the story we worked on was a family where I can't remember the exact number because it was so long ago, but she had near like somewhere around 10 miscarriages. Like it was really, really sad and heavy until they finally got their baby perfectly healthy after like, again, I can't remember the exact number, but it was around 10 tries. Like, and it was such a heavy story, but to finally get that happy outcome, man, it's a wild journey, especially when you're adding in childhood cancer like into the mix as well. It's a whole other can of worms that I can't even begin to fathom.
Yeah, I can't imagine going through something like this and like the story you just mentioned. I can't imagine that. But for someone that is battling infertility issues and stuff like that, I can't even imagine how hard, how difficult that would be. But to know that there's always a little bit of hope, that it could always happen. There's always miracle baby situations that do happen. And just holding on to hope that it's possible, even if it seems completely impossible. And this goes for any kind of dream that you're going for, that even if it seems incredibly impossible and the world's telling you that it's not likely or that it's impossible, there are stories out there of people having their dreams come true in ways that they never expected was possible. Mm-hmm. The next story is a little more lighthearted. This story comes also from Best of Positive Updates. This story is titled, OOP's Autistic Son Thinks He Has No Talents, but Discovers One Just in Time for the Talent Show.
Okay.
The story says, poor soul struggles to make friends. Both the school and our family are constantly trying to help, but my sweet little boy simply cannot hack it. Despite all this, we keep trying. He is on the spectrum and loves talking about space and Apple. I am slowly teaching him social skills, but it takes a lot of face plantings for anything to stick. He absolutely drives us crazy with talking about Apple products over and over and over.
Okay, so not like
not
apples.
Actual Apple products.
Okay, that's what I thought, but you never know. You never know.
Yeah. One time he talked so much about Apple while I was driving that I zoned out to the point where I ran over a cone. Oh. Last night he hit me with the old, I entered the talent show. I truly did not expect him to proceed with, I'm going to recite every iPhone ever made.
Oh.
Usually, I try my best not to hurt feelings, but I simply cannot sit on the sidelines and watch my child commit social suicide. I gave an absolute no and reminded him all he talks about is Apple and that his classmates do not want to sit there and listen to him talk about iPhones again. He bawled in my arms and said he had no talent. I let him cry it out, and then we looked online at different talent show ideas. He didn't like anything he saw. Then a light bulb went off. This kid loves sound. He likes loud, annoying sounds that make me want to scratch my noise-sensitive ears out, so I downloaded him a DJ app and Tidal. We found 6 songs that carried a lot of the weight, then he began mixing it. He was awesome! I couldn't believe how easily he took to it. But by the end of the night, he was able to echo out songs and do all these cool siren/sounds while waiting for the beat to drop. He even came up with fading out the last song and set a vibrating alarm on his watch 6 minutes in order to not lose track of time. We agreed that as soon as the alarm goes off, if he isn't done, he'll move on to the last song and fade out quickly. We packed him a cool little outfit to wear with mirrored sunglasses, his iPad and the speaker, then off he went to school.
Is there anything about how it went?
Yes, there is.
Oh, there is. Okay, we'll get there. Well, I think why not combine the two talents and like he does the wicka wicka mixes in like iPod Nano.
Hey, there you go. There
like
you
just
go.
mixes in the two different get real artsy there. Maybe even sponsorship from Apple. Who knows?
There you go. There you go. I mean, he's using an iPad for making the DJ beats, so there you go.
That's true. That's pretty cool. I don't even know how to begin doing that process for them to just kind of accidentally happen upon that whole new skill and endeavor. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome. And kudos to his parent for going through and like trying to find something that would work with his skill set and realizing my kid loves sound. What if we were to do something like that and finding this new talent and that the kid might not know that they have? That's such a cool way to be honest with the kids so that they don't end up going up there and feeling embarrassed or feeling like people don't like what they're doing, but to actually help them to find a talent that they have that they can then foster in that kid, that the kid enjoys doing, that then they can really succeed at this talent show. I think that's so, so awesome.
Mm-hmm. Kind of go back to the first story a little bit about challenging them to do something different, go outside your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Albeit it's a little more tragic because, like, hey, no one wants to hear that.
Yeah, it is sad.
I'm sure she said it nicer than that, but
Yeah.
even if you say it in the nicest way possible, it's still
a
gonna
gut
hurt,
punch,
you know?
yeah.
But hey, from hurt, then you can maybe develop, again, in this case, develop a whole new set of skills that you didn't know that you were even capable of.
Yeah, it's awesome. This story is also a good example of pivoting and being willing to pivot your dream. Because if you have a dream of performing at a talent show and you think, okay, this is the track, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to talk about iPhones or whatever you think your talent is, sometimes the dream might look a little different than what you thought it would. And being willing to accept that and being willing to go forward with that and not be stuck in, no, my dream is exactly this. And if I'm not going up there and talking about iPhones, well, then I just shouldn't even do the talent show, even though maybe the dream was the talent show itself and being up there and having his peers support him and be excited for him. Mm-hmm. So it's all about being willing to pivot your dream and not give up on it just because it might not look exactly the way you had pictured it would look.
Mm-hmm. Reminds me of your friend back in, I think, what was it, elementary school, that just for the heck of it, maybe for bragging rights, memorized the dictionary from front to back.
Yep.
It reminds me of that. Just imagine going up there and just reciting the dictionary.
Right, exactly.
Not that I don't think your friend ever did that in the talent show, but it reminds me of that. Like, oh, that's my talent. I memorized the dictionary.
Right. Oh, man. But we got an update.
All right. We got to know how this went, okay? Because I feel really bad if we were talking about this and then it was a complete disaster, because then that'll be sad.
Yes. So first update was, I've been praying all morning. His teacher was really excited for him, and I hope he doesn't back out. Even if he does, I'm hoping he'll stick to this hobby and maybe enter into the next talent show. And then they updated the next day. It went really great. Better than I expected, honestly. The kids got up and danced, and his teacher said this is the moment she'll always remember. She told us she wasn't supposed to say this, but he was the best out of all the kids. When he walked out the door, he was beaming like a light. I think it's the first time he's ever felt connected with the kids.
How old was he again?
He was 9 years old.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that's pretty young. I was thinking it was pretty young, because if it was like middle school talent show, there was usually like an audition of some kind, you know, you can't just walk up on the stage and just do a talent. Like, there was an audition process. So I figured it was a younger age that you didn't have to go through an audition process to be able to go onto the talent show stage. So I'm glad to hear that it worked out well, because that could be such a disaster. But also,
anytime that any kid enters into a talent show, it could always go wrong, because sometimes kids are just mean, even if you are good at what you do. So so seeing that the kids were super supportive and were dancing to his DJing and stuff, I think that's so awesome.
Which they don't have to do.
No, they don't have to, but to see them come together, and it's so awesome that the comment, I think it's the first time he's ever felt connected with the kids. Like, for example, in this story, he obviously loves talking about Apple products. I don't know many 9-year-olds that maybe are super into talking about Apple products. Maybe they talk about the stuff they watch on their Apple products, on their iPad and stuff, but to actually talk about that. And so feeling that disconnect of, oh, these kids don't like talking about what I like to talk about and stuff like that, because hyperfixations are really common in kids with autism, where that's their main interest and they really want to talk about just that. So seeing that this really connected him to his peers, and that's something that they can talk about afterwards now, is his performance and DJing and stuff like that. That's something now that he has in common, which is really cool.
And hopefully it's a skill and passion he continues to develop and expand upon.
Yeah, and that also doesn't mean he has to give up on his interest with Apple products either. You know, he could find other ways to pursue that interest as well, whether that be maybe eventually working at Apple someday. You never know.
Or just using Apple products for his DJing mix.
Yeah, there's so many avenues that he could pursue in his future. So it doesn't mean to give up on it entirely, but it just means that sometimes your dreams or your goals can sometimes shift a little bit, and that's totally okay. And if we are too stuck on how it has to be, we might miss out on great opportunities or great ways to fulfill those dreams that maybe would make us really happy in the long run.
Maybe find new dreams.
Exactly. Our last Reddit story I picked just because I feel like this is a very relatable thing that a lot of people deal with. And I just think it's important to kind of talk about. So this story is from the Best of Positive Updates, and it is titled, How Do I Accept the Fact That I May Never Have the Career I've Always Wanted?
Ooh, I feel like anyone that's ever gone through college or the sophomore, quote unquote, the sophomore slumps is going to probably relate to the story. That's, again, I haven't heard the story yet, but just from that title, that makes me think that, including myself, might relate to this.
Yeah, it's pretty common, I feel like. This story says, I'm so discouraged. I'm posting this here from a throwaway because people I know in real life know my name. And this sub feels like I'm talking to the big sister I never had. This post was originally posted to the Girl Survival Guide. Ever since I've graduated in January, I've been applying to job offers left and right, and all I get is ghosting and refusal. I see my peers getting good jobs in huge companies every day, and then there's me. I have a master's from the second best university in my country, and I'm extremely passionate. Every time I take an interview, I get the impression that I did well because I answer all of the questions well and everything goes so smoothly, only to be surprised that they chose someone else eventually. I'm starting to feel like there's something fundamentally wrong with me as a person, or that I'm just not cut out to work in the field that I chose to get my degrees in. All I ever wanted in life is a good career. That's all I focused on my entire life. I don't have any close friends, I'm not lucky in love, and the fact that I can't seem to find a job in my field now is making me think that I'm going to end up living an extremely lonely and unfulfilling life with my parents until the end of my days, with probably a dead-end job that sucks the little bit of life I still have in me now. This morning, I woke up to a rejection letter for a job I took 3 interviews for, and I thought I did so well in. It would have been a dream job. I'm so discouraged and depressed, and I only see darkness ahead of me, and I don't know what to do moving on. I'm so depressed that I can't even bring myself to apply to more jobs and put a smile on in an interview and lie about how motivated and excited I am to work.
Oof, that's heavy. That's not the direction I was expecting it to go. But man, I feel like people can probably relate to that. I know when we first got out of college, we struggled hard to get our first full-time job in our career field. It was really, really hard because every job wants you to have experience. But how do you get experience if you don't have the job?
Right, exactly. It can be really hard.
And they didn't say in the story what the career was, did
No,
they?
they did not.
Okay, because every career is a little different with what the path is. Some jobs, it's a very clear path to what you need to do. And then other jobs, it's more, it's kind of who you know a little bit, or you have to have done this internship here or whatever, work part-time for X number of years before you actually are able to get a full-time job. But that's kind of hard to do when you're trying to like support yourself. Because I know for a long time, you and I had to like work multiple part-time jobs before we were finally able to get our career full-time job to actually develop in that direction.
Yeah, it can be really tough. And it's really hard when you do have jobs that you apply for and then maybe get like a call back and have another interview and you think you're really on track to get it only to be turned down, and they're not always very transparent about why you got turned down. And so wondering to yourself, what was it that I got turned down for? That can be really, really soul crushing after a while. And it can be really hard to feel like you're valuable in the workforce after a while, and kind of like OP said here, putting on that smile and pretending like you're super motivated and excited when you feel like you've been kind of pushed down a little bit. I think that can be really hard for people. I know some people in my life that have had really struggles with this and trying to find a job and trying to find a career that they really, really want. It can be really, really hard out there. So, and I've gone through it myself, so I completely get it. But there is an update, and this update says, I just want to let you girls know that after publishing my last post, I got a call back from a huge consulting company, a competitor of the last company that rejected me, and after a couple more interviews, today I received a call from them congratulating me for getting accepted as an M&A legal consultant. I just wanted to thank everyone for the encouraging words, and I wanted to confirm that one should never lose hope because hard work pays, even as a young woman in a heavily male-dominant field. Thank you all.
Oh, there you go. If it's anything like with us, it feels like so often you get rejection after rejection, and then finally the right job opens itself up. And then after time you look back like, oh, it would have been horrible if I got in that job. It worked out so much better that I got this job instead. That opened up so many different kind of doors and avenues. You just never know where your life's supposed to be taking you.
Exactly. There's so many stories of that, of thinking that this is the path and this is the only job I've ever wanted. Oh my gosh, this has to be it. If it's not it, I'll never get a job that I want. And then all of a sudden one comes out of the woodworks that you never even considered. And so in this case, it's funny that it happened to be a huge consulting company that was the competitor of the one that had given them the rejection that they wrote the post about. So sometimes it can be completely out of left field. And so just being open to a different path than maybe what you thought, but ultimately ending up where you really want to be in the long run. And so keeping that hope going, even when it feels like you're being turned down left and right, it can be really, really, really hard to do. So if you're dealing with that right now, hopefully here's a little boost for you that it can still happen. Even if it feels like you're being rejected left and right, the right thing might just come along when you least expect it. So keep the hope up and keep going, as hard as it is, because I completely get it. It's so hard, but sometimes the right thing is just right around the corner.
Yeah, for sure. And I can definitely relate to getting sort of sniped by a competitor then, or that you were, meaning that you were the one that was sniped. That like, okay, now you're going to a different competitor rather than who you originally applied for. So it happens, like maybe if you don't get the job with the one you want, go to the competitor maybe,
You never know. I had been working with somebody on a film set for something, and they had mentioned that they were a commercial producer at this station. And I thought to myself, that sounds like the world's coolest job. I'd love to do that. That'd be amazing. But I assumed that position wasn't just open to anybody. Like, I assumed you had to know somebody to get into that kind of role. Years later, I'm applying for all these positions. I'm like, why am I not getting hired? I'm not going to find a job in the industry ever. Oh my gosh. And then out of nowhere, this position opened up at the perfect timing of when I really needed a job, and I got the role. And I would have never expected that would have happened. So it just shows that sometimes it can happen when you least expect it, and just keep the hope up.
They did go on record to you saying later on that they regret not hiring you in the first time you applied.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. I had applied to that job, this position, like a year before that.
We both had applied to it it was opened up right after we graduated college.
Yeah.
And then it reopened again about a year and a half later. Which I guess technically we did get more experience on the side doing various side projects, not directly working in the field because we couldn't find a full-time job at that point. But
yeah. And it's funny because when I did finally get hired for that commercial producer position, I looked back and I thought to myself, I'm actually really glad that I didn't get hired a year ago, because I wasn't ready at that point. I thought I was, and I thought that I had the experience and everything, that I was ready for it. But I knew that my confidence levels of all of the stuff that I had needed to know to do that job were not there. And had I gotten the position, I would not have hit the ground running like I did when I actually did get hired. And I wouldn't have been as self-sufficient and confident in my filming abilities. And so sometimes you might think that now is the right time for something, or this is the job I need right now. And sometimes you might look back and go, actually, it ended up working out exactly how it had to. Not always, but sometimes. So that's an example of my life that I've seen that happen.
I think you could have done it, but totally get the whole confidence aspect of it.
So on to our news articles for today. I feel like this first news article is very timely with all the Olympics. The story is about somebody that won gold in the Olympics this year. Okay. And the story is from CBSNews.com and is titled, "A Spinal Injury Killed Adrianna Ruano's Dream as a Gymnast. She just won Guatemala's first Olympic gold medal as a shooter."
Wow.
Yeah, so this is pretty awesome. So Adrianna Ruano was originally a gymnast, and she was training for the 2011 World Championships in gymnastics because she wanted to qualify for the London Olympics. And all of a sudden she felt something painful in her back, and they found out that she had injured 6 vertebrae in her back, and that it was a career-ending injury. So she was told by the doctor she shouldn't compete in gymnastics anymore, or even train in gymnastics anymore, because it was so bad. That being said, she ended up trying to go into shooting and trap, and she ended up winning gold this year at the Olympics for Guatemala, and she got an Olympic record score of 45 out of 50.
Dang. I don't know much about shooting, but that sounds impressive.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. It says here that Ruano celebrated in tears after winning gold while spectators cheered and waved Guatemalan flags. Olympics.com reported.
Dang.
Talk about pivoting. I mean, gymnastics is such a demanding sport. You have to put so much time and energy into something like that to even consider competing in the Olympics for that, something like that. So to have a career-ending injury like that and to just pivot and go into something completely different, because trap and gymnastics, I feel like, are incredibly different.
I mean, are they really? I mean, one is like performing incredible feats of, I don't even know how body distortion as you're just flipping through the air and stuff versus shooting a gun. I don't know. I think they're
Lots
the same
of comparisons there.
I think they're the same thing.
So to pivot there and to not just give up and say, well, I'll never be in the Olympics. Because I feel like it'd be so easy to do after something like that. And not only that, but an injury. So it's obviously probably painful. It'd be so easy to just give up on that dream and say, well, I'm not going to be in the Olympics. I put so much time and energy into this sport. There's no way I can pivot. There's no way to be in the Olympics again. So the fact that Ruano went forward and continued to try to find a route into the Olympics and then ended up winning gold, that's so incredible. Our next story is from GuinnessWorldRecords.com.
Okay. So we're going from Olympics to Guinness World Records.
And it's kind of a sport-related thing. So here we go, kind of keeping with that trend.
All right.
This title is Awe-Inspiring Athlete Born Without Legs Scores Epic Skateboarding Record.
Okay.
A skateboarder named Kanya Sesser is 31 years old, and to quote the article, she has successfully completed the longest handstand on a skateboard, an impressive feat that saw her supporting herself on her hands atop her board for a whopping 19.65 seconds. She was born in 1992 without legs, and she had a rough start in life, but she was supported by her mom and by Thai women nurses that helped her to become a strong, independent woman. And she said she has also got a lot of self-confidence in herself, that despite everything that she has challenging her, she can pursue it anyways and overcome it.
Well, I'd say that's impressive.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
It's a word I'd use for it.
Skateboarding. That's amazing. To quote the article, she also competed in the Dew Tour 2022 in Des Moines, Iowa, where she placed second in women's street adaptive skateboarding. She's also done a lot of other complex tricks on her skateboard, such as a 50-50 grind with the skateboard balanced half on the edge and half off. The trick consists of sliding along an edge or rail using the board's track instead of the wheels. And the 5-0, where instead the back truck of the board grinds the edge. And to quote the article again, it says here, but the sky is the limit when it comes to stunts, and Kanya knows it well. The young athlete has her eyes already set on more tricks that she would like to try.
Again, impressive is the word I would use.
Yeah, right? No kidding. She was interviewed and she talks about how she can be kind of a perfectionist, and so she kind of has to remind herself that you do need to make sure you give time to breathe and give yourself self-care. Even when you are pursuing goals and records and stuff like that, like she is, because it sounds like she's a huge go-getter. She's also been on TV and shows like The Walking Dead. She's also a model, and she, like I said, she does skateboarding. So she does a lot of stuff, and she's very much a go-getter. But I love that she says that in pursuing these dreams, she has to remember to not always be a perfectionist, to breathe, self-care, all those things. I think that's really important in our pursuit of our goals and our dreams, to make sure that you're not doing it at the expense of yourself, and making sure that you are taking that breather and you're giving yourself the care that you deserve throughout the process. Because it can be very much a hustle society we live in, where it's like, if you're not working 12 hours a day all the time, what are you even doing? So to remind yourself that in the pursuit of these goals and dreams that you have, to make sure to take that time to relax and recoup, and make sure that you're keeping an eye on yourself and making sure you're not pushing yourself too hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you also don't want to kill the passion and the enjoyment for you, especially for that kind of a thing. If you're not enjoying it, you're not going to get better at it. You're just going to get more frustrated, and it's not going to be fun anymore. You kind of need the fun for that kind of thing to be able to achieve any of those goals, really.
Right, and especially with something like a sport, you don't want to push yourself too far physically either. Too much of any good thing can become bad or harmful, and so making sure that you're not overworking yourself and not pushing yourself past your own physical limits too much to the point that it starts becoming detrimental.
Mm-hmm. I mean, was it in 2020 Olympics that Simone Biles recused herself for her own health? I can't remember the exact circumstances, but she stepped back, and now she's come back in 2024 and is just kicked butt.
Yeah, she's been doing awesome this year. We watched a documentary that had a little section on Simone Biles, and I don't remember, unfortunately, what the name of the documentary was. It was a while ago.
It wasn't a positive
Oh, was it that
one.
one? Oh, got
Yeah.
you. But I remember she mentioned that one of the reasons she recused herself from the Olympics was because she was starting to have self-doubt about certain tricks. Because apparently, like, you have to have a lot of mental confidence that you're going to be able to execute things in the air. And trusting your body to know how it needs to be in the air to get the land perfect, or you could really hurt yourself. And she was struggling with that for some reason, and she didn't know really why, it sounded like. And so she needed to take that break to be able to figure out what was going on mentally so that she wouldn't end up injuring herself or messing up the landing or whatever and have it be really bad. So
Because as we established previously, if you get an injury related to gymnastics,
it can be
it's a
career
career
ending.
killer.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really important to check in with yourself and not push yourself past those limits, because you don't want to end up pushing yourself too far where it could be actually harmful to you. And that goes for anything, even non-sport related. Singing too, that's a huge one. I remember I would be told a lot, make sure you're taking lots of breaks with your voice. I used to do a lot of singing for contests and competitions. And if you push your voice too much, you can develop what's called nodes, which can be really, really bad for your voice and can actually make it so you can't sing again. Like, that happens to singers sometimes that are professional and are not taking the time to take care of their voice properly, because it's just like any other muscle in your body. You have to make sure you're taking care of it and not pushing it too far. So with any good thing, you can pursue it and put so much work into it, but also just make sure that you're not pushing yourself too far and giving yourself grace in that process as well, to not have to go constantly.
Yeah. But also understand the hustle. There definitely is a time to do the hustle and the push yourself hard. Just know your limits and don't overextend.
Yeah. Do you have any dreams that you want to talk about, Wyatt?
Well, first, I guess it's worth talking about. I would say that's our dreams that brought us together in the first place, because, we both met in a digital media studio class studying communications film studies at St. Scholastica. And it's through that shared passion of wanting to make movies and tell stories that brought us together in the first place, leading us to make short films together. And we even made a feature film together, Blind Truth. You can watch it for free on Tubi. That's my quick plug there. And be able to make that project together. And, since then, we've been together for a long time now, and dreams change and adjust. We've kind of moved away a little bit from the initial dream of like making movies and stuff together to now like building a family together, creative storytelling in other areas and other means, like say like a podcast here through a production company. I still like the idea of getting more into film at some point, but hey, like following any kind of dream is not a straightforward path. And there's I would say branching dreams, and like things change. I originally, when I went to college, was going to go into physical therapy. That was the original intention. I think I've maybe talked on this podcast before about how I completely flunked out of anatomy, and that was that dream killer. But before that, I did actually have a dream of being a filmmaker from being a kid, and then abandoned that dream because I thought it's not attainable, and then switched to physical therapy, and that became unattainable in a completely different reason because I just could not handle the science, the in-depth science involved there. Mad kudos to anyone who can. That's awesome. But because of that pivot in dream, I met you, and we've now formed this life together. And now we have a podcast many years later. So ultimately, all roads lead to this podcast. So that's the most important part of all this.
Funny story about this podcast and this dream. So I actually had this idea for this podcast about 2 years ago now. Wow, yeah, it's been 2 years ago.
Something like it. It's changed a bit since then, but
yeah, but originally to have a podcast that kind of focuses on the positive things in life. And I was kind of scared to start it, and I didn't know where to really start, and I felt very overwhelmed by it. And I was actually watching an episode of the Smoshcast, which if you're looking for another fun podcast to listen to, that's pretty wholesome and positive. Most of the time it's on YouTube.
They definitely talk about non-positive things sometimes, but it's all in good fun. Like,
yeah,
it's meant
exactly.
to be. It's entertaining. It's entertaining.
But they had a guest on there. They had John Green, who's a famous author and YouTuber. And in that episode, he mentioned about when you have a aspiration of some kind and you're stressed about it or overwhelmed by it, to just do it. Even if it scares you, just take a step and do it. And at the very worst case scenario, you fail, but then it's out of your head, right? It's not just up there as a thing that you're thinking about all the time, about maybe I could someday do this, or, oh gosh, that sounds so overwhelming. Those thoughts kind of go away because either you succeed or you fail and you move on to something else. And that was something that kind of pushed me to actually pull the trigger and do this, because I was feeling overwhelmed and I thought to myself, well, either it goes well and I enjoy doing it and we keep it going, or I realize it's not for us and then we move on to something else and find a new dream. So I really appreciated what he said there, and I think that could apply to so many things to so many people. I thought that was a really good piece of advice when it comes to chasing after goals.
Mm-hmm. Now somehow I just gotta find a way to make my Star Wars movie. I want to go full dream mode and call up Kathleen Kennedy and find a way to make a Star Wars movie.
Hey, well, if there's anything we've seen from stories on this podcast today is, nothing's fully unattainable. Even what seems impossible can still happen. You never know. Mm-hmm. So keep an open mind. You never know.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining today's podcast. We hope you'll join us next week on Wednesday for our next episode. We have some exciting news. We've now created a community on Reddit. You can find us at Uplift Positive Stories.
Yeah, it's not uplifting, it's uplift, because apparently there's a character limit.
Count.
It's a character limit, so it's Uplift Positive Stories on Reddit.
But yeah, so you can either post on there or join our Facebook group, and you can post stories there as well. We'd love to get some stories from you all that we can share on this podcast. That would be awesome. You can also send us topics that you'd like us to talk about on this podcast at upliftingpositivestories@gmail.com as well. Thanks so much for joining, everybody, and we hope you'll join us next week.
And stay positive.